Hi there, everyone. My name's Lisa Wolfe. I'm the Arts and Culture Officer here at North Sydney Council. So I'm going to run the session today. What I'll do is run through the slides and the information, and then I'd ask you to keep questions until the end. I think we're covering just about everything that's coming up, and I'm also doing some frequently asked questions at the end. So I have started recording this meeting, just letting you know, and we will just keep that for training purposes. So the primary point of contact for the call for entries period will be myself and my colleague Jenny Cheeseman. She's not on this call today, but if you send an email through to the Arts and Culture team, one of us will get back to you if you have any follow-up questions. So starting, hopefully everyone can see my screen, which I'm sharing. So if you can't, just put it in the chat, but you should be able to do that. Okay, so first of all, our key dates. Call for entries closes on the 30th of November at 5 o'clock, and the finalists are announced on the 19th of January with the exhibition 11th of May to the 2nd of June. So the rest of the information is available in the terms and conditions with regard to the artwork installation and collection. Please read the terms and conditions carefully before you submit your entry. Please also read and address the curatorial theme and, if relevant to your work, the exhibition venue information. And the reason that we're having these information sessions, there are a couple of people there are a couple of familiar names that I can see in this meeting. So there's a few people who have entered before, but the reason we're having the information sessions is that the Coaloader is a unique exhibition site, and the breadth of work that is accepted into the prize includes site-specific installation proposals for new work, interior, exterior works, so complex works all the way down to two-dimensional works on paper, paintings, drawings, etc. So skipping ahead to the awards, these are available on the website. Everyone is eligible to be considered for the Major Open Award. Then you can nominate to be considered for the Sculpture, Site-Specific Emerging Artist, Drawing or Work on or with Paper Award. The selection panel for this year has also been announced, and that is available on the website. So the Coaloader is located in Waverton, and across that site we have several venues for displaying the works. We've got the mess hall and another interior space, and the mess hall and interior space is usually where two-dimensional works that are designed to be hung simply on the wall are displayed. We also have the outside areas, which I'll go through in more detail, and Tunnel 2, Tunnel 1 and the chambers. And the venues outside Tunnel 2, Tunnel 1 and chambers are what I will mostly talk about during this presentation. The unique characteristics of the site mean that it's a heritage site, and as a result, artists are not permitted to drill into any walls, into any floors, into anything basically. And that means we can't add new fixings easily. We can only use existing fixing points, and they could be natural or mechanical fixing points, and I'll talk about that as we go through as well. Also unique to the site is the weather. Outdoor, obviously, artworks are subject to the weather, but even though the tunnels, Tunnel 1 and the chambers are undercover and inside, they are also subject to leaks, drips, water seepage, muddy and uneven surfaces. And that's because the way the tunnels and the chambers have the architecture is they're under a large platform, and over that and that platform sits over those. There are also chutes where the coal used to be put down and water seeps through there. But basically, because of its sandstone nature, water pools at the top, and it doesn't even pool rainwater, and it seeps through the sandstone. And that's why, even though it's undercover, it can be subject to significant leaks, new leaks and leaks that we're already aware of, muddy and uneven surfaces, and I'll talk about that as well. There are significant limitations on what we can do with the work, but where there's limitations, there's also creates a very exciting place for people to display their work. So that's something, it can be exciting, but also create limitations. So there's a lot of limitations in terms of lighting, which I'll talk about in more detail. Suspending works, there are significant limitations. There are limitations with access to power as well. There is access to power in the mess hall and other interior sites, but there is no power in Tunnel 2. Limited access to power in Tunnel 1. There are power points along the tunnel, but at various points along the tunnel. Within chambers, there's only power within every second chamber. There is power in the foyer and the mezzanine, but there is no access to power outside. There is no Wi-Fi and very poor mobile service within the tunnels and chambers. So please keep that in mind if your work involves Wi-Fi or requires mobile service. There is Wi-Fi. I'm just letting someone else in the lobby. There is Wi-Fi across the site, and also mobile service across the site if your work is outdoor, and also in the mess hall and in the chambers. We will have artwork, we will have invigilators. However, your work does need to be robust. The size of the site and the way the chambers and the tunnels are, the architecture, invigilators can't be it can't be in every spot at every time. So your artworks do need to be robust enough to withstand, much like the terms and conditions of sculpture by the sea, to withstand little hands grabbing at things, or in chambers and tunnels, delicate artworks made from delicate materials need to be put high enough or secured in some way that they're not broken. So moving on to just letting someone else into the lobby, from the lobby. So, okay, I'm just going to pop the new joiners on mute for a moment. Okay. So moving on to some photos. As I mentioned, the focus of the main focus of the information sessions is around the tunnels and the chambers and outside. So for those of you who haven't been to the site before, the image that we're looking at here, this is the entrance to Tunnel 1, which is the location of the underground chambers, the foyer and the mezzanine. The image that we're looking at here displays the mezzanine up here and the foyer area. And this along here is the entrance to Tunnel 1. The foyer and the mezzanine are traditionally used as a gallery space where we display more than one artist's work in a curated fashion. So this is one artist's work here, this is another artist's work in this area here, and another artist back here. So that could be sculptures by several artists' works, or installations, site-specific work, etc. So at this point, I'm going to talk to you a little bit, start talking about suspending works and installing works within these areas, and talk a bit more about the use of mechanical and natural and existing suspension points. So what I'm talking about here is in this foyer area, we have these steel girders, and they are suspension points. So works or elements of works could be, we could attach wires to picture rail hanging hooks and suspend those from the girders. So that would be an existing suspension point. Up here, this railing could also be an existing suspension point. this sandstone block here, we wouldn't be able to drill into it, but we could add hooks to the top and suspend work from there. We're not allowed to drill into the floor, but these sculptures are just placed on the floor, and they were robust enough to not fall over, and the materials that they use. So you can see this part of this artwork here is suspended from, for want of a better word, there are slats running along the floor for the mezzanine, and that provides also suspension points along there. Moving on to the next image. What the image I'm going to show you now is an image of the mezzanine, so above where we were just looking. So this mezzanine area is also traditionally used as a gallery space where we display more than one artist's work. So Wilhelmina's work here is suspended from the steel girder. You can see it's hooked along there. There is power up here, lighting across here. Whilst we could reach this ceiling, we wouldn't be able to drill into the ceiling. So there's no ability to suspend from the ceiling within this area here. Just going back here, this is a projector which is suspended from the girder, and you can just see that the projection goes onto the wall back there, and you can just see it's a little bit trickier, but there is a large textile work that is not affixed, but it is suspended from points on this wall here. Moving to the next image, this here, I'm just letting someone else in. So this part of the image here is, I'm just going to mute the new, there we go. This is a train carriage. This is the coal train carriage. That is a permanent fixture, and I'm going to show you the next image, which shows you the front of the carriage. Artworks have been hung from this girder here. It would be also possible, if it was of interest, for artworks to be placed within the train carriage. So elements of artworks to be placed within the train carriage. That could potentially be a site-specific work. So elements or parts of sculpture could be placed within the train carriage. Artworks could be displayed here on a plinth. And the next part of the mezzanine is there is a platform. And again, we have dimensions of all of this as well, if anybody needs that. This platform could be a sculpture displayed there. In this case, you can see that it's an audiovisual work has been placed in this area here. So that sort of covers off that foyer, the mezzanine area. If I can just go back to this image, we're going to move now to show you an image of this, a closer up image of this space underneath the foyer, which is the entrance to the tunnel. Okay, so this is underneath the stairs and underneath the mezzanine, and from this point you can see this is the entrance to the tunnel, which goes quite several hundred meters down, and also the entrance. You can see the entrance to the first chamber, and you can see that there's doorways that you can walk through to access each chamber. And the way that most people enter is most visitors enter as they come through the foyer. They visit the mezzanine. They will then walk through each of the chambers and then walk up the tunnel and then come back and walk down the next tunnel. So we can change the direction of visitors, but that is the way most people will visit the exhibition. So this is another display. So you can see that Kate's work has a couple of elements just suspended from the floor above the mezzanine there. This is Donna Marcus's work, and what we were able to do here is using the sleeper. There's a set of sleepers that run down the length of the tunnel, which is where the train carriage previously ran, and we're able to suspend braided wire from the sleepers, drop them down, and then attach the artwork using D-rings to the wires. So that's how this work was suspended along there, and I'll show you some more examples of that. So that's another way to display, that's another way that work can be displayed down the length of the tunnel. Artworks can also be displayed in the tunnel itself, or down the length of the tunnel. This the width of the tunnel is approximately 3 metres wide, and artworks have been displayed on plinths down the tunnel, as well as suspended or otherwise placed down the tunnel. And I'm going to show you some other examples of that. In relation to that, what we have to be aware of throughout the whole of the tunnel and the chambers, and indeed across the site, is accessibility. So I'm talking about wheelchair accessibility, people accessing who have other access needs. We don't allow prams in, but of course people with wheelchairs or who might have other walking aids. If an artwork was to be placed in the tunnel, then in the centre, it would have to be placed in such a way that a wheelchair could get around safely, so people could get past the artwork. So in that case, an artwork might have to be placed off centre, to the left or to the right. So the exhibition manager will be working with artists to determine placement with in mind accessibility. So I can see there is a raised hand. I'm just going to check that. I will towards oh no, it's not. Towards the end, I will open up for questions. So if I will come back to the raised hand there. Moving through now to images of the chambers. So I don't have images of every single chamber. These are indicative images. The chambers are more or less look the same. There are slight differences though. So I'm just going to quickly go back to this. So this is one of the chambers. This is a fully lit chamber, and I'm going to come back to lighting as we go through. So people would come through this door here and walk through each of the chambers, and there's 25 chambers. The chambers are all approximately 5 metres wide, 5 by 5. So 5 across, 5 across. This is what we call north-south, and this is east-west. On the west wall, each of the chambers has a rocky area that more or less looks like this, although there are variations. It's sandstone rock. Some have more ledges, some jut out a little more, but it's more or less the same. From the floor to the ceiling is approximately 9 metres. From the floor to the top of the rocky ledge is approximately 5 metres. These doorways are a standard width. While they're a standard width, they are not all standard heights. This doorway here is a standard height of 1.9 metres. However, this doorway is not. So some doorways are as low as 1.4 metres. It's your responsibility to ensure that your artwork can fit. If your work is placed in a chamber, that your artwork can fit through the door. Of course, you can disassemble it outside and then reassemble it inside, if that is possible. This is an example of an artwork that is simple install. The artwork is placed in discussion with the artist in the chamber, but again, the artwork has to be placed with safety of visitors in mind. So a visitor needs to be able to walk around the artwork safely, and a wheelchair needs to be able to get around the artwork safely. So the footprint of the artwork within a chamber, within a tunnel, or anywhere else across the site is very important. People need to be able to enter and exit safely. So moving to the next image is a different type of installation where the artist has used elements of the site here to include, so they've included some sculptural pieces here, as well as placing artworks on the rock shelves. So that has been used quite a lot by artists in the past, using these elements as a natural shelf. At this point, I'll also mention to you that we have found no way to secure the artworks here. So 3M tape doesn't work, double-sided tape doesn't work, blue tack doesn't work, museum gel doesn't work. That's because of the damp and humidity within the chambers. So these items are just placed, and items that are very delicate have been placed higher so that they couldn't be reached. But that's something that artists need to keep in mind, that there is, we have not found any way that will, because it's sandstone and concrete, we have not found any way to secure items here so that they cannot be moved. Okay, moving on to the next image. I'm going to talk about suspension, and then we'll get on to a little bit more information about lighting. This is a different artwork. So within the chambers, there is very limited ability to suspend artworks. So artworks could be suspended from, some of the chambers have mechanical suspension points, which is this electrical conduit along here. Again, we would be able to put picture rail hooks and suspend artworks from D-rings across here. We could also use the natural elements here. So you can see that there's lots of pock marks, for want of a better word, within the concrete. There's also different architecture and natural points across here. And artists over the years have successfully been able to suspend artworks from natural points in here. So that's another option that's available to us. In this case, these very light textile works, we are able to rig up braided wire from north to south. So using mechanical points here, you can just see that there's a pipe or a hole up here, and all through the chambers there are pipes. And we are able to suspend braided wire across the length from north to south, and very lightweight artworks can be suspended from those. So these are lightweight artworks, and because of the distance, it has to be light artworks. The distance of 5 meters means that anything too heavy, it will bow. So even if you were to try to find a long enough stainless steel pipe or from Bunnings that could run across the chamber, because it's 5 meters, if the artwork is too heavy, it will still bow. It's just the engineering. We can only suspend wire for you north to south. We wouldn't be able to suspend it east to west. There's no fixing points that we can work with. So you notice that this door has a third door, and every third chamber has an additional door, which is a safety door out to the tunnel. We can't close that off. That has to be open. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to lighting now. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to jump. I'm just letting someone else in. I'm going to jump into the tunnels. So we've talked about the chambers. I'm going to talk about the tunnels, and then I'm going to come back and talk about lighting. So jumping to the tunnel, this is an artwork that has been displayed. This is a site-specific work. The artist is Gary Shinfield, and this is a work on paper that has been suspended in the tunnel, again from the sleepers. So I mentioned that at the beginning. We rigged up braided wire to create hooks from which Gary could suspend the work. Last Art Prize, we were also experimented with, and it was very popular amongst the artists and the visitors, experimented with displaying more traditional works like paintings and frame drawings, also within the tunnels. We didn't force these artists to do this. It was their choice. So this is an artwork on paper, and Simon requested, after discussion with him and the exhibition manager, he took into account that there was some damp and humidity, but he was happy for his work to be displayed in the tunnel. Once again, we rigged up a hanging system, for want of a better word, to display that there. So jumping into lighting now. I'm just going to hop back and explain lighting. Okay, so going back to this tunnel image, it's this chamber image. This is a fully lit chamber. Lighting in the chambers is LED light, and to sum it up, all the lighting across the site, what you see is what you get. We have no ability to turn lights off. These lights within the chambers are on a motion sensor. So when somebody walks in, the light turns on. Excuse me. There are usually so many visitors during the prize that the lights are always on. We cannot turn the lights off or change the sensor in any way. The most we can do is cover one of the lights or cover both of the lights. There will still be some ambient lighting. So that's all we can do for artists here. We cannot change it. We cannot cover any safety sign like this. So green, if your chamber has one of those safety signs, it cannot be covered. This is in the tunnel. We cannot turn lights off in the tunnel. They are also LED safety lights. They are also always on and on a motion sensor, which means when somebody walks past, they light up slightly more. The most we can do is cover those lights and cover. This is an example of the safety lights being covered. So the LED white lights being covered, and then we spotlit using a warmer light the artworks. So this artwork here was then spotlit, and this artwork was spotlit with warmer lights. So that's all we can do for artists along there. There's nothing that we can do with that. This is an example of a chamber that has had one of the lights dimmed. So one of the LED fluorescent lights has been covered, so it created a slightly dimmer look within the chamber. That was because this artist also had a projector displayed. In tunnel 1, and I'll actually come back to tunnel 1. Okay. So moving on now to weather and water. If you have a look here in this corner here, this is a tunnel. This is tunnel 1, and you can see there's a lot of water on the ground. So tunnel 1 is subject to leaks. As I mentioned at the start, there are chutes where the coal used to come down and water comes through there. We would never put an artwork directly under a leak. Under a chute, we know where those chutes are, but nevertheless, there can be additional leaks that happen, and just by visitors through, they can also track water through. So it can be very wet and very muddy. That's something to keep in mind. In the chambers, there are about 3 chambers that are subject to significant water leakage. The water leaks down the rock faces, the water leaks down the concrete, and this image doesn't show it particularly well, but this particular chamber is one of the wettest chambers. There's pretty much always water in there. So there is humidity and pretty much always water there. In this particular instance, this artwork could withstand the water because of its materials, and in many ways the water was related to the artwork. So whilst water can be difficulty for a site-specific work that is perhaps ephemeral, artists have in the past used the water to their advantage to create degradation or use the water to enhance their work. So that's also a possibility. So where there's a disadvantage, there's also a possibility. We would never make an artist go into the wettest chamber that we have if they did not want to be put in there. If there was no artworks that were suitable for the wettest chambers, we would close them off and redirect visitors around them. So we wouldn't force anybody to do that. But I'm showing you this because artists do need to understand that water and weather is a real issue. there are very dry chambers as well. So there are several chambers that to date have not had any water leakage at all. So and again we know those. Moving to outside, and then I'll talk about the second tunnel as well. So artworks are placed outside. This is the entrance to Tunnel 1 and the chambers, and behind here is an entrance to Tunnel 2. So there is a grassed area with casuarina trees. There's also a paved area, and artworks are placed throughout that area. The artworks that are designed for outside. Another few images, there's a grassed area, there's a terrace steps that artworks can be placed in amongst the casuarina trees, and the other natural environment artworks can be suspended. Once again, they can use the natural elements. Nothing can be cut down, nothing can be killed or affected in any way, but artists have certainly successfully used in parts in the past natural points, and that is acceptable, as well as mechanical points that are available throughout the site. Moving on to Tunnel 1, Tunnel 2. Tunnel 2 is always open to the public. Tunnel 1 is only open to the public during the Art Prize, during coal loader lights, and also other events. Tunnel 1 is a little different to Tunnel 2. Tunnel 2 is a little different to Tunnel 1. As I said, Tunnel 1 is always open. Tunnel 2 is always open, beg your pardon. Tunnel 2 has no lights, no power, very little capacity for hanging. There is a bar that artworks can be hung. They can be placed on plinths or freestanding through there. I'll just show you another image. But we cannot add any lights. We cannot remove any lights. Pretty much the lighting that you see in Tunnel 2 is the lighting that you get. So it can be quite dim. It's at the mouth. There's quite a lot of daylight, but oftentimes artworks that have been placed in there are ephemeral works or artworks that are site specific, that are really using the architecture, but because of the limitations, they're usually site specific works, and oftentimes are placed at the start of the tunnel. Artists, again, this can be subject to significant leaks and lots of water. And we recommend that artists consider this an outdoor venue, for want of another description. It's really not an indoor venue. So that sort of concludes the information about the various sites. I'm just going to jump on to some of the frequently asked questions so that everybody has access to the same information. The most commonly asked question is, if I'm proposing a work, can I request in my proposal or in my application for the call for entries, that my work is displayed in a specific chamber, a tunnel, or another specific place? The answer to that is yes. Your proposal can make that request that it be displayed in a chamber or the tunnel, but we cannot guarantee that your request will be met. All of the requests will be considered, but the final citing of the work is the decision of the Art Prize organiser. The way it will work is that if your artwork is selected as a finalist, artists with proposals for installation, site-specific, sculpture, ephemeral works, etc., will be contacted by the exhibition manager. The exhibition manager will make an appointment to discuss the artwork requirements for your display, and also suitable locations. So they'll take into account whether you need what size, what footprint you need, power, all of the other requirements that you need, and then take into account everybody else's requirements and then determine the final location. So you can certainly make a request, but it will be considered, but we cannot guarantee that you will get what you've asked for. If the next question is, if your work is a work in progress or you haven't yet completed it, so it's a proposal for a new work, what should you submit? We we suggest that you supply a sketch, a Photoshop mock-up, a picture of a maquette, whatever clearly illustrates your vision to the judges. The judges will work on what is put in front of them, so they won't go hunting around for other information. So the best thing to do is be as clear as you can with your drawing, or your Photoshop mock-up or your maquette, and also supply an image of similar completed work or work that shows your capacity to produce the work, so that the judge can look at it, the judges panel can look at it and understand, they want to understand what your vision is and whether or not you can, and whether you can, you're able to produce it. The other question we've been asked is each artist responsible to install their own work, or if you live interstate or outside Sydney, can you just send your work and with the installation instructions? Most, if your work is a two-dimensional work designed to be wall hung, it will probably be installed by our techs. And if your work has simple installation requirements, then we can install it. You are most likely, the artists who would be required on site or representatives is artists who are installing site-specific, ephemeral works, large works with lots of components, installations, and works that will take a significant amount of time. So if your work is very simple, we will most likely be doing it for you. Another question we've been asked is, can you deliver your work earlier than the dates listed or collect it later? The simple answer is no. We really need to stick to those delivery dates that we have set out, and that's the same with any other art prize. The other question to be asked is, as I've mentioned, that we have techs on site. Our artists have asked whether or not they will have a dedicated technician or a dedicated staff member available to help them. Again, the answer is no, not really. Our artists and all our technicians and staff will be installing lots of different artists' work. They will be doing other general preparation tasks. What they will be able to do is, if your work has a suspension, is to be suspended, our techs will be responsible for putting in the wires for you, or if you need to work at height, they will work at height on your behalf. But if your artwork requires days of assistance, or many hours of assistance, it's up to you to bring a colleague or someone to work with you if you need more help. And again, that's the same for most art prizes. And the other question is, will our techs be able to help transport the work from your car to the site? And do we have lifting equipment? No. You'll need to bring your own trolleys, or arrange a friend or colleague to help you bring them to your from the car to the site. A couple of other questions that we've had is, do we have monitors available for digital works? That's set out in the terms and conditions. Artists may be required to supply some or all tech, like projectors, monitors. We don't currently have monitors, so you need to be prepared to supply those. And that's pretty much all of the frequently asked questions. So what I'm going